Hi guys, I'm Mike, and this is an intro. Alright, what we got here is going to be a Captain Sisay EDH deck. It's not going to be a moderate budget. There's going to be cards in here that I've actually saved up quite a bit. I've kind of scrapped this together over quite a while. It's one of my older decks. It's not competitive for Captain Sisay because it's not quite a Sisay deck, actually. That's a little bit of a lie on my part. It's actually a Rise deck. It's built around him. It works with him best. But I've come into the idea that, yeah, he's good, but as soon as you run out of hand, you're kind of screwed. There are ways around that, but the easiest one I found is just to put Sisay up first, search out Rise, and then nothing changes. Yeah, so really, this is a Rise deck, but it works as a Sisay. You're going to see a lot of the toolbox aspects that Sisay brings up, but it's mostly going to be focused around tokens and mana generation that's going to swarm the field. As of course you know, Sisay is a 4-drop green-white, so Selesnya colors. She's a legend. This is the old copy of her, which, yeah, I'm cool with that. She's from the invasion block, and her ability is tap, search your library for a legend or legendary card, reveal that card, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. She is insane. What she does is so amazing, because Magic's printed so many good legendary cards that you could easily take advantage of this, and that's what you do with this deck. You take advantage of it to really horrible extents. Rise, on the other hand, is a 1-drop general, which just right there is saying something, because the only other one I could think of is the Hound, and this guy's way better. He's a 1/1 elf warrior for 1. Right there, there's a lot of decks just take advantage of his types, and they're completely valid. I don't run them, mostly because elves. Yeah, it works, but elves. Yeah, what he does is pay 3 and tap, green or white, and put a 1/1 green-white elf warrior creature token into play. Good. But what's really interesting is his second ability is 4. 4 colorless, specifically, and then either a green or a white, 2 of each of those. Mix and match, your choice. For 6 total. For each creature token you control, put a token into play that's a copy of that creature. He doubles tokens. He is insane. Now, it takes 6 mana, and he's a 1-drop, so you're not going to use him right away. I also wouldn't drop him right away. I wouldn't even risk it until you have enough mana to really make use of him. But what he does is insane, because it'll take an army and make it bigger. It also means that if you want to, say, swing all out with your army, you just need to make a copy of it before any damage is dealt. So that way, if you lose anyone, you're okay. Or just keep doing it repetitively until you just swarm the field. That said, let's get on with the deck. As you can tell, it's going to be heavily focused on mana generation and creatures and other types of abilities and cards that really pump out what you need. Okay, just 1 second while I pull it up. First up, Mirari's Wake. This is the 5-drop Selesnya colors, and it has a buff for all your creatures get +1/+1. Specifically your creatures, so you don't actually have to worry about hurting or yourself by helping your enemy. What I really like about it, though, is that it says, whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana to your mana pool of any land or any type that land produced. It's effectively a mana doubler. Not as good as an actual mana doubler, but it takes any land and makes it just that much more useful, and it fixes your colors, in the sense that you're probably going to have green and white at this time, so you're going to have more of it. Basically, it'll just give you more of the good stuff. The good stuff being mana, and in this deck, that's useful. Well, actually, in any deck, mana is useful, but... Alright, after that, Dictate of... I'm going to say this wrong. Karamitra. I know I said that wrong. Sorry, I never could say it right. It's a 5-drop that says, whenever a player taps land for mana, that player adds 1 mana to his or her mana pool of any land that... any type that land produced. Now, it has flash, so you can get around some of the downsides. The problem are the downsides is that it helps everyone. Which means in a bigger game, it's going to hurt you a lot more than it'll help. It's an interesting card. Again, because of flash, all you have to do is put it in right before your turn to take advantage of it. But after that, everyone else gets the advantage too. Trade-offs. If you need it to win the game, use it. If you don't quite need the mana, hold off on playing this card. It's good. It fits in the deck well. It buffs you out, and if you need the mana, this will give it to you. But if you can get away with not playing it, I'd actually suggest not to. Also, Keeper of Progenitus. Now, this guy has the same problem as the Dictate. He buffs your opponent's mana base the same way as yours. Whenever a player taps a mountain, a forest, or a plains for mana, that player adds 1 mana to his or her mana pool of any type that land produced. Hey, I said it right this time. Nice. The thing is, though, while this helps your opponents, it cuts out anyone who is focusing on black or blue. 2 colors you do not want to buff anymore, especially black. Dear God, the things they do for mana already. Ugh. But, back on topic. The thing I like about this, though, is it's a creature. You can use this to play politics by saying, okay, come at me. I'm going to block with the one creature that you need to really make your deck work well faster than it would normally. So on the one hand, yeah, it's going to hurt you by helping them. On the other hand, you can use it as a bargaining chip so that someone might not want to attack you or even be incentivized to step in with a spell to help you if you need it. Again, politics. Gotta love it. Unless you hate it, in which case, yeah. Caged Stun. This one, it's a little high cost, 6, but it's colorless, so as long as you have the mana, you have the mana. When it enters the battlefield, choose a color. In this case, it'll be green or white, because it's the only color you can use. Creatures you control of the chosen color get +1/+1. Useful. And then it does the mana doubling. Well, not doubling, it's more mana equals lands tapped +1, but yeah, you kind of get the point. It's just a quick way to increase your mana total by your lands. And this guy. I do feel like an ass for playing this. On the one hand, he's legendary, so I can use Sisay to search out a way to double my mana. But he's an 8-drop, so he's kind of expensive. Now he's a 7/6 Trampler, which isn't bad, but attacking with him isn't actually all that useful compared to his other abilities. Whenever you tap a land for mana, you may add 1 mana to your mana pool of any type that land produced. Same as the other cards, useful. What makes this card so evil, though, and just completely reviled by every single person I've played him against, is that whenever an opponent taps a land for mana, that land doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Every Praetor that came out of the new Phyrexia block had that swing ability, where it buffs you and then hurts your opponent by the equal and opposite amount. Except in this one, I actually think it's a little more devastating to your opponent because it shuts down their ability to really play things the next turn. Where, yeah, you can play more things this turn, but not playing anything the next turn unless they hold back this one, that is a much bigger threat. The other ones are kind of nasty, but this one, it is always going to help you, and it will always hurt your opponents. Unless you are so late game that you have so much mana on every side of the board that he's useless, but really, by the time you've hit that, the game should already be over, so it's not even worth mentioning. He is good, he is amazing, and you will rightfully be the target of the entire board the second you drop this guy. One-on-one, not a big deal. Any more than one person playing against you, you will get all the hate and you will deserve it. But it's worth it because he's awesome. Alright. Next up, we got the cards that aren't creature cards and aren't going to be putting out mass armies, but they are going to significantly increase how you can play the game. For instance, start up here. Start with a goodie but an oldie. Leyline of Vitality. Now it's a leyline, so if it's in your opening hand to start with, it starts on the field. I like the effect. And it gives your creatures a toughness boost of +1. Not bad. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may gain 1 life. This is the Soul Warden ability, basically. Now, it's a little expensive for a 4-drop in green, and I could have actually run the green equivalent of Soul Warden out of Planetary Chaos. But this is an enchantment, so it's a little harder to kill than a creature which you can actually kill, and you can start with it on the field. I just prefer it a little to that. Now, I don't have a copy of Tristani, because she does a similar effect based on toughness, so it's actually a little better. So I'd actually go for her if I had a copy, but I don't, and until then, I'll go with Leyline. What's interesting about this, though, is the life gain ability. This is a deck that's going to be pulling out a lot of tokens very frequently and very often, which is kind of redundant. But yeah, you're going to get more gain in life off this card than almost anything else, because you're going to hopefully, if this deck runs well at all, be pointing out, I can't speak today. You're going to drop a lot of guys, and they're going to give you a lot of life, which is a similar reason for Elspeth Tyrell. Her +2 is to gain 1 life for each creature you control. You're hopefully going to have a lot of creatures. And if you don't, you can use her -2 to put 2 out. Technically, her big ability is a -5, destroy all other permanents except for lands and tokens. That's useful, but there's a lot of cards in this deck you don't want to destroy. There's ways around it, and you might need that ability, but just having the threat of board wiping on your turn, of everything other than what you control, and you're going to have a lot of tokens. So you might even consider it just to make sure you can swing at your enemy. That, and she starts at 4, you use her +2 once, and then the next turn you're set to just kind of screw with everyone. She's a time bomb waiting to go off, and if nothing else, people will focus on her rather than hitting you, which could buy you time if you need it. Green Sun Zenith. I run this in every green deck I can because it is truly one of the most amazing cards I have ever seen. It's not broken, unless you break it, which isn't actually hard, but you pay green and X. Then you search your library for a green creature card with converted mana cost X or less. Put it onto the battlefield, shuffle your library with Green Sun shuffled into the library. You get to use Green Sun again if you draw it. You get to put a creature into the battlefield. All you need to do is pay 1 more than its mana cost, really. It has to be green, but there's so many green creatures and so many dual color or tricolor or even 5-color creatures that this is an unbelievably good card. And you just drop it into the battlefield. Not your hand, not near the top of the deck, not on the top of the deck, into the field. Enter the battlefield abilities go off. It is... You will find the piece you need to complete whatever combo or any type of strategy you need, as long as that piece involves at least a little bit of the green color. It is so good. Yeah, it's one of my favorite cards in the entire game. Also, this is an old one. Altar of Bone. I don't know why, but this is a Selesnya color green-white card. This is from early Magic, and some of the things they did didn't quite go with the colors then, because the idea of what each color was supposed to do wasn't firmed up. This one, for example, is what would now be a steady black ability. You sacrifice a creature. Then you look through your library for a creature card. Put that card into your hand after showing it to every other player, then reshuffle your library. This is a sack search for a creature, put it into your hand. But this is also what would normally be a complete black ability. Except it's on a 2-drop, green-white sorcery card. I don't know what to say other than I am glad this one snuck through, because it is just truly so good. You're going to have tokens, you're going to be able to sack 1, and you're going to get the card that's not legendary, but will beat the game out, because if it was legendary, Sisay would get it. This gets everything else. And chances are, it will be a win condition. Similar to Akroma's Memorial. This is in here because Sisay can search it out. This is only for her. If this was a straight Rise deck, I might have it in because the effect is that good. But for Sisay, it's just better because she can get it immediate. Now, it's a 7-drop, but there's mana excel, so you can deal with that. Creatures you control have flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, protection from black, protection from red. I think you can see my point here. Those are 2 of the most aggressive colors in the game. Most generals seem to have at least a little of black in their cost, and there's quite a few that have red. This will no-sell so many decks. It no-sells most kill effects because of black. It does so much to stop direct damage, which is usually red. Now, you can still be bounced with this thing around, but that's 1 out of 3 highly controlling colors, including white for exile. But you're playing white on your own, and you're going to have a massed field, so if they're board wiping, this wouldn't matter anyways because of protection effects. But no directed death will ever hit your guys. Anyone who's doing Relentless Rats, I know a couple guys in my metagame who do that, so I actually consider that pretty frequently. But this will stop them, or at least make you get through them much quicker. The card is great, and it really sets you up. Eldrazi Monument. This is actually, at least in this deck, a little better than Akroma's Memorial. It gives your creatures +1/+1 flying and indestructible, which isn't bad for a 5-drop colorless. The usual reason I don't like it is because you have to sacrifice a creature at the beginning of your upkeep, and if you can't, you have to sacrifice Eldrazi Monument. The thing is, though, this is a token deck. You're going to be so swarmed in tokens that sacrificing 1 wouldn't even be noticeable. You could probably get like maybe 5 or 6 sacked each turn, and you might not notice if you're getting Rise out early enough. So yeah, anyone who's board wiping suddenly is useless against you because your stuff just won't die. And it's a little bigger. So all those 1/1s are now 2/2s. You're going to have a lot of them. You're going to swing off it, and they can't do diddly to it because they're indestructible. Unless they got Mass Exile. And I hate the card that does that, but yeah. This gets rid of so many issues and makes your guy stronger. Knight Captain of Eos. Now, technically he puts out 2 white soldier creature tokens, but that's less interesting than the fact that when you pay 1 and sack one of those soldier creatures, prevent all combat damage will be dealt this turn. Rise doubles creature tokens. This guy puts out 2, and you can just sack them. You could easily make this so that you will never take damage on your turn again. You could even maybe screw around with other people and have them bribe you to not let them take damage. It is a diplomacy card and a way to save yourself all in one. It will gain you hate, and rightfully so, but it will also let you really control the flow of the game and make certain alliances possible that wouldn't be there otherwise. Aura Shards. Yeah, just a good standard card, but made better in a token deck because it's a 3-drop Selesnya colors. Whenever a creature comes into play, there's going to be a lot of creatures coming into play, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. Now, the creature has to come and play under your control, but token deck. You're going to be wiping out most people who are playing artifacts and enchantments. You can more or less assume that they will never get one again. A board wipe might be less effective at getting rid of them all, because you will be doing this frequently. Sometimes during their turn, just to screw with them. Okay, maybe a little mean to do that, but valid. Very valid. Hunting Grounds. Okay, this one actually doesn't go with the theme of tokens, but it requires Threshold, which is 7 cards in your graveyard specifically. Whenever an opponent plays a spell, you may put a creature card from your hand into play. This takes advantage of Sisay. Specifically, you tap her, you get the card right before they play a spell, and if you have Threshold, you immediately put it onto the field. I don't need to explain why that's good. That is terrifying in its own right. There are win conditions based around this, and this is a 2-drop enchantment. Now, it requires Threshold, so you have to have 7 things in your graveyard. But, you know, right away it's not perfect. This isn't a deck that will take advantage of putting things in your graveyard right away either. But, maybe mid-game to early-late game, or late-early game, you're going to have cards in there, and you'll be able to take advantage of this to absurd amounts. And it'll also do 2 things. One, it'll put a target on your head. Another justifiable one, because this is scary. On the other hand, they know that if they do anything directly against you, they might have to deal with its wrath really quickly. So it'll also make them hesitate, just a little. And that's usually enough to pull something out. Like Congregation at Dawn. Selesnya colors, white, 2 green. It's an instant, which is nice, and search your library for up to 3 creature cards. And reveal them. Shuffle your library. Put those creature cards on top of it in any order. You're choosing your next 3 draws. You're choosing the next 3 creature draws. You will find the 3 creatures Sisay can't search for that you need to win. Heck, even if just the first one's there, it's good. And it's only a 3-drop instant, so you can play it before your turn. So you get your next draw perfectly, exactly what you need. Then the one after that, and the one after that. That's not even taking into account that maybe you have something up to let you draw more. Yeah. Genesis Wave. Yeah, you just drop a lot of mana in there, and you pretty much drop out your field. Now, this won't get any spells or instances, but every other permanent comes out. So it's not perfect, but it will change the game if you have a high enough number. Just don't mill yourself out. That's usually a bad way to lose. Well, for you, good for your opponents. Alright. Next up, fun stuff. Well, they're all fun, but things that will start puking out tokens. Now, mobilization. Soldier creatures have vigilance, so it's everyone, not just you. And 3, put a 1/1 white soldier creature token on the battlefield. With mass mana, you could probably put out more, and it sticks around, so you could do a lot. Deploy to the front. Put X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. Not your creatures, just on there. If everyone else has a swarm deck and you have nothing, you suddenly have an army that's probably bigger than everyone's combined. Now, it's expensive, but it's worthwhile. Martial Coup. X and 2. Put X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens into play. If X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. It's a board wipe and a change of state because you can then get an army. With a lot of mana, which you will have, it's even worse. Darien, King of, I'm going to say this wrong, Keldor. 6-drop legend, search it out with Sisay. Whenever a creature deals damage, you may put that many 1/1 white soldier creature tokens into play. The best combo with this is anything that says whenever you gain life based on creatures that enter the battlefield under your control. It basically says if it doesn't kill you, you will get that many creatures and save yourself. If you have multiple instances of life gain, you will get more life than they can do to you. Unless they one-shot you, you will not die. Nomad's Assembly. It doubles creatures out in the field with core soldier tokens, and then it rebounds, and it does it again during your upkeep. Next upkeep. Parallel Lives. It doubles how many tokens you put out, which is really stupid considering you're going to be putting out a lot. Heliod. For 2, you can put out a 2/1 white cleric enchantment creature token. Oh, and all your creatures have vigilance. It's indestructible. It's a 4-drop, and it can't be, exiled right away because it's not a creature. Early game, it's a little safer. Late game, it's an indestructible 5/6. Entreat the Angels. It's a little expensive to pay for it in your hand, but if you get the miracle of 2 and X, you're going to drop an army of really big 4/4, well, decently big 4/4 flying angel creature tokens. Yeah, scary. Launch the Fleet. Now, this one is a little iffy. It's a 1-drop to start with, and until end of turn, any number of target creatures gain. Whenever this creature attacks, put a 1/1 white soldier creature token on the battlefield tapped and attacking. The thing is, for any number, you need to pay 1 more for each of those numbers. Yeah. Wait. Yeah, you have to pay 1 more for each of those. So if you have 10 guys attacking, you need to pay 10 total. White and 9 colorless, or of your choice. But it'll then double whoever you have attacking. So it's either going to recoup your losses, or it'll just add to next turn. Not bad, not perfect, but for a 1-drop, it will be useful. Mycloth. Devour 2, so it gets counters. It gets bigger, 2 for each one it devours. It starts as a 4/4. If it had trample, it would be broken. But it's kind of broken in its own right because at the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 green sapling creature token into play for each 1/1 counter on Mycloth. Which means for every 1 creature it devours during your upkeep, wow, I can't speak, you're going to get 2 1/1 sapperlings. If it devours 4 creatures during your upkeep, I cannot speak today, you're going to get 8 sapperlings. And it keeps going and going and going, and you're going to get an army. So this thing needs to be killed if you're not playing it. And if you're playing it, protect it. Decree of Justice. A little too expensive to play out of your hand, but the cycle cost on its own puts out soldier tokens for a pretty decent rate. 3 and X. That said, cycle also draws you cards. I kind of prefer it that way. But if this is late game and you have an absurd amount of mana, yeah, go for it. Flying 4/4s is great. Sacred Mesa. 3-drop. 2 for the ability. Put a 1/1 white Pegasus creature token with flying onto the battlefield. The good side is that you can pump your mana into this and get a large flying army. The downside is at the beginning of your upkeep, you need to sacrifice Sacred Mesa unless you sacrifice a Pegasus. Do not run out of Pegasi. They are very good. You just got to keep pumping them out. You're going to make this card the win condition when you have enough mana. And with Rise, you're going to have enough Sacred Mesa Pegasi to keep sacking them. Goldmane. Okay, this guy is a win condition and he's in the wrong pile, but I'm going to talk anyways. Long story short, you pay 3 and 2 white. Attacking creatures you control get +X until end of turn, where X is the number of attacking creatures. Yeah. I have 10 1/1s attacking. I use his ability. That's now, let's see, carry the 1. 10 11 11s attacking. Yep. He gets broken fast. And since this is a swarm deck, it's not so much broken as they're going to concede on you sometimes. Wolfbriar Elemental. Multi-kicker on top of his 4. For every green you pay, you get a 2/2 wolf. Yeah, Fun. White Sun Zenith. 3 and X, where X is 2/2 cats when they hit, and it shuffles back in. Luminarch's Ascension. Pay 2. A 4/4 white angel creature is now on your field. There's more to it than that, but basically, you need to not take damage for 4 turns. 4? Yeah, 4. Because each time you do that, you put a counter on this. For each counter on it, you get closer to this ability. You can only use this when you have 4 counters. But once you have it, you have a win condition out. Nactol War Pride. It puts out counters, or creature tokens, equal to this guy, that are forcing your opponents to block them, equal to the number, and you get a number of tokens equal to the number of creatures you can be blocked by. So not only will one of this guy always get through with 3 damage, whether it's this original one or one of the tokens, but anything else you attack with besides him and his tokens will not be blocked because they cannot be blocked, unless someone says they have multiple blockers. But yeah, it's really good for making sure you can get past someone. And Requiem Angel. Whenever another non-spirit creature you control dies, put a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield. It just says non-spirit. So all those tokens you point out, the elves, the cats, the warriors, now you get spirits for them. This goes off really bad for your opponents really fast. It's fun to watch. Alright, let's see. We have one last group. Technically, Jazal is in this one, so hope you just give me a second. These are the things that are going to be win conditions in their own right, on top of Swarm Tactics. We'll start off with the easy one. Did I say easy? I meant asshole-ish. Elshnorn, Grand Cenobite. You can search her out with Sisay. Creature you control get +2/+2. Creatures your opponents control get -2/-2. Yeah, that's a 4-point swing in your favor. Similar to Garruk Wildspeaker. Not as bad, but early game, the untap 2 lands gives you an advantage. Late game, or whenever you have a field, creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample. You're going to have a swarm. That's probably a win condition. Right up there with Kamal, Fist of Krosa. Pay 5, 3 of it green. Creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until end of turn. That, and whenever he's working with Elshnorn, there's a nice little land destruction combo. Specifically, their creatures get -2/-2. Their lands become -1/1s. They become -1s. They die. Or, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a completely dick move, and it's evil, but if you need to do something, this will do it. But you're going to get a lot of hate in this game, and probably in the next couple weeks, because it's really mean to do this. So yeah, use with caution. Or alcohol, because you won't be able to remember then. It'll probably hurt worse later, though. Champion of Lamholt. It gets bigger whenever a creature enters. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield... Creatures with power less than Champion of Lamholt's can't block creatures you control. Not when she attacks, just when she's on the field. Immediately, if someone for some reason has 0 power and more toughness, they can't block anymore. Which is really all they would ever do. And when she gets really big, like a 10/10, which is easy with tokens because she counts those, then anything that's less than the 10/10 can no longer block your creatures. Your army of 1/1s suddenly become a win condition. Similar to Beastmaster Ascension. It needs 7 counters to work. That means 7 creatures have to attack. This is a 3-drop in a swarm deck where you're probably going to be attacking with up to maybe 20 to 30 to 40 creatures a turn easily. This gives them +5/+5. So if any one hits, it's going to do a bunch. If maybe a third of them hit, chances are that's going to be one less player to worry about. And the personal one that I think is the most evil of them all, Craterhoof Behemoth. Haste, 5/5 for 8. When Craterhoof Behemoth enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control, including him, which is nice. Let's say you have 10 1/1s. He enters. Suddenly, each one of those 1/1s becomes a 12/12 because of the +11 buff. They all have trample. That's a win condition, and a